What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the KMBest podcast. Marvel Snap is currently banned in America, still down. And I think we have to start with a conversation about what this podcast is going to be. This is the KMBest podcast. It's about my opinions, and my opinions are something you're going to have to deal with a lot through the lens of what we're going to talk about here. We're going to go into everything we know about Bytedance, about Newverse, about TikTok, about Trump, about Biden, about why Marvel Snap is down and why that's even beginning to be related, and what the hell is actually happening. We just got news a little bit before we started recording that they expected the game to be up in 24 hours or so. So by the time this is up, the game might be up, but I am unclear on if that will actually be happening. And I guess this is just a point in time where I have to say, like, the opinions you see expressed here are not the opinions of Second Dinner or Marvel Snap or Bytedance or Newverse or any company that I have ever worked with. They are the opinions of me. These opinions represent me, KMBest, and nobody else. So, with all of that said, Marvel Snap got taken offline late Saturday night. And this started it started with being removed from the Apple App Store, and then it was the Google Play Store, and then the Newverse website was down, and then Steam was down. And currently the only way to log in the United States is to log in via VPN, which we are not sponsored by, so, not going to talk about any of that stuff here. Have you been... Did you get in before?
I was going to say, I moved to Canada.
Oh, you actually did? I didn't.
Yeah, playing Marvel Snap was that important to me. I wanted to play today.
Wow,
so, yeah,
on a hot
I moved to
location day?
Canada.
That's crazy.
Oh, I didn't play that much. I didn't even notice it was a hot location day.
Yeah, see, like, when this happened, I was like, man, I'm really glad it happened, like, Sunday, Monday, because that's a hot location day. I can at least justify skipping one of those. I'm good. This is my normal schedule. I don't mind. So,
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, sorry, there was, like, a monologue at the beginning. Someone mentioned last time, like, average KMBest podcast starts with KM talking and nobody else talking for, like, 3 minutes, and that definitely happened.
On my other monitor, I have the comments open, and I was responding to a few of them, and that one, I nodded at.
Yeah,
I think I might have clicked the like button, but yeah.
You might have clicked the like button.
I can't remember. It's been a very eventful couple days, you know?
Yeah, the Marvel Snap is news. Like, journalists are reporting on it. Paul Tassi is reporting on Marvel frickin' Snap. So, basically, my understanding of the situation is as follows. Marvel Snap is owned by Second Dinner, but it's published by a company called Newverse, which is a subsidiary of Bytedance. Bytedance, also the people that own TikTok. So that's baseline number one. Baseline number two. It should be clear from who I am that a lot of things that are bipartisan consensus in US politics are things I generally regard as total crap. A lot of the things both parties are able to agree on are things that are sort of diametrically opposed to, like, things that I view as doing good in the world. So when TikTok is presented, the ban that was presented to Congress passes in a bipartisan way. This is something that a majority of politicians in the Senate agree on, basically. This is not like a wholly Republican or wholly Democrat initiative. This is something they both agree on as a matter of national security. And because of this, there is now what can only be described as a game of brinksmanship between Bytedance, the owners of TikTok, who the United States alleges are controlled by the Chinese Communist Party in a direct way, and the United States, which passed this bill with the intent to force TikTok to sell its American assets to an American company. There's been a lot of different people trying to buy it, but the major thing is that the attempt here is not to ban TikTok, it is to force them to sell to Americans. That is the goal. And TikTok responded to this in basically by saying, we'll leave. We will leave. We will do this. And when you read the bill describes a foreign adversary-owned application as anything owned by Bytedance. This is not like a clear-cut thing where it's like, oh, this obviously includes Second Dinner. Because what degree of ownership is actually required? Like, is being published by a company that is a subsidiary of Bytedance, is that the same as being a subsidiary of Bytedance? That's unclear. There is a much less direct relationship between Second Dinner and Newverse and Bytedance than there is between even anything that they actually own and operate, because it is a partnership rather than a specific subsidiary relationship. And I think that honestly is like the kind of question where it's like, you could do a legal case about this. This is the kind of thing where, like, interpreting the point of the judicial system is to interpret the wording of laws, and there would be arguments on both sides about this. So I guess I wanted to start there, which is, do you think Second Dinner knew? And what do you think about the people who are currently losing their minds assuming that they did?
I saw a lot of that. I think the important distinction to me is, like, okay, everything that you said tracks to me. That is also like what I figured out when I saw all this stuff going down. Just like cursory amount of research, and it was like, okay, all of this stuff is apparent. But is the distinction of like Newverse publishing Marvel Snap, does that quantify Marvel Snap as an adverse foreign entity?
It could. Like, you could argue that. You would be able to argue that in a court of law.
Well, right. It depends on whether or not Newverse actually has access to like any of the data, for
or
example.
An ownership stake, right? Like, because the people that operate the game are Second Dinner. So
sure, but like if they own it but can't do anything with it
right.
besides publish it, then how is that a matter of national security? I mean, you could make the argument where, like, it should be zero, right? It should just be binary. But in terms of like what the government alleges that TikTok is doing in terms of like, oh, China has control of all your data and whatever, and like this is bad because they're our enemy.
Yeah.
I don't know, like that whole thing also is pretty silly to me, because it's like there are a bunch of US companies that have access to all of our data and are not using it in ways that make them our allies, you know?
This does come up to me a lot, where it's like, I get people who are really mad at, like, they're sending biometric data to the Chinese Communist Party, and it's like, okay, what do I care? What are they gonna do? What are they gonna do with my information?
Yeah, they're way over there, man.
Yeah,
I'm
right here.
Happier with them having my data than like Zuckerberg or whatever.
Yeah.
So
like the argument from there is mostly like, okay, so the difference is that we are geopolitically opposed, and that like leverage in that way could be used to like compromise the security of the United States. And because it is directly connected to the Chinese Communist Party in a way that companies in America are not directly connected to the US government, that is bad. And it's not something that we should allow, even if you think that the Chinese government and the US government are like the same level of like moral actor, which I think most people in America probably think the US government is a slightly more moral actor to a largely more moral actor. But
yeah, I would say leaning towards largely more moral.
Yeah,
but that is certainly up for debate.
Sure. But the idea that like the owner of a tech company being a private citizen is somehow insulating them from government interference, to me, is basically laughable. When you look at someone like Zuckerberg, who is very clearly reinventing himself as a like right-wing persona in order to appeal to the incoming president here. And this does not seem like something that is overwhelmingly compelling to me as an argument, but it's clearly overwhelmingly compelling to a majority of senators in the United States Senate. So there you go. You got guys like Tom Cotton and Chris Murphy agreeing on this, and they don't agree on a lot of stuff. And that makes it really weird, because a lot of the stuff they do agree on generally sucks and people hate it. And in this case,
well, speak to that more a little bit, because I think that I think that there's like a pretty clear through line that you can draw in terms of like, if it is a thing that they're both getting wealthy off of, then they can handshake on it.
Yes.
Right. And I think it's important to make that clear.
Yes. Or a thing that serves multiple people's geopolitical purposes, right? Like, ultimately, saber rattling with China helps basically everyone in DC. It makes the politicians who do it look brave for standing up to the foreign enemy, and it means that military contracts can keep rolling in for more and more big money for Raytheon and Boeing and whatever it is that we pay people to do to make the newest and most advanced planes to drop missiles on people. It's hard, right? It's hard to talk about this stuff because we're getting into actual politics here. And I don't want to do as much of that as possible, but the TikTok ban catching Bytedance in this way, I am, again, conspiracy brain putting some pieces together. Ben Brode made a statement that was, we were told basically that this wouldn't happen. Like, someone was like, hey man, it sucks. This is like a blue sky statement. Like, some guy was like, hey Ben, I can't imagine how much this sucks. And he's like, yeah, it sucks way more when you were told that it wouldn't happen. And that was the first thing that got me thinking, like, okay, why would they not be told that this would happen? This isn't like a miscommunication. This is like, that's like a really big deal. Like, they are a game that relies bluntly on people getting hooked on the loop of logging in. Every minute they're down, they're losing money. Every minute they're down long term, they're losing money long term. Not just the money from people not logging on right now, but money from people who are breaking their habit. And so This is not the kind of thing that should go under the radar. This is the kind of thing that you should ask about and get assurances about. And it seems like they did. Bytedance removed their apps from all app stores in compliance with a law. That law is the law of the land. Joe Biden and his administration have said they will not enforce that law. However, I don't really know, bluntly, if I'm Bytedance. And not only Joe Biden is saying, I won't enforce the law, and Donald Trump is saying, I won't enforce the law, I'll give you 90 days, right? But there are senators like Tom Cotton who are like, we will absolutely enforce the law. There are like lawmakers who are saying, we will try to make you get this enforced. Like, we will start fining you. We will find this illegal for you to continue operating past this date. We will try to do that. And so Bytedance here is sort of where I don't really know what the motivations are. Because there's two ways to read this, right? Way number one is Bytedance is being overly cautious in removing everything it is even tangentially involved in from all US app stores so that they don't run afoul of people like Tom Cotton, right? That's one thing. Tom Cotton, by the way, for those who are unaware, a Republican senator from the Midwest who is just a wild China hawk. So, like, this is just, like, kind of what he does. He is... The other way to read this, though, is especially given the explicit naming of President Trump in the TikTok coming up message. I even saw a screenshot from Bloon's TD6 that was like, we can't wait for President Trump to fix this, basically. And, like, it seems like a pretty coherent effort to get credit being handed to Trump. And I'm not going to dive into, like, all the ways in which the Democrats fumbled this bag and just let him do this because they're very not good at their jobs. But the way to read that could be that this is an attempt, either coordinated or not, to curry favor with the incoming president. And let's say you're Bytedance, right? If you are going to do a PR stunt to make Donald Trump look good, the last thing you would do is tell an American subsidiary that that's what you were going to do. It's the last thing you would do.
True. I do wonder which was chicken or egg in this scenario, though, whether or not Bytedance did this first and then talked to Trump, or whether or not they had coordinated this whole thing already.
I'm wildly unclear on that. Like, I have no idea what could possibly get done in 12 hours that wasn't already done, basically. Because that's about how long TikTok was down. The Biden administration, Karine Jean-Pierre, called this a stunt. Like, the day before it happened, she was like, them doing this would be a stunt. They would be doing it for absolutely no reason. We are not going to enforce the law on them. They are doing this for PR purposes.
Also, to be clear, I feel like if they get fined or whatever, any sort of fine is just going to be dramatically lower, presumably, than the amount of money that they would make by keeping TikTok up for however many days that they chose to keep it up, correct?
I can't speak to the financials of that. Like, they're the stuff I'm confident
I'm just
speculating on, but there's stuff I'm not confident speculating on.
sure. I'm saying I just assume.
Yeah, like I don't. I am not sure what penalties they could have been subject to, what penalties guys like Tom Cotton would have tried to apply to them. I know Speaker of the House Mike Johnson said that they would be attempting to apply the law. But, I mean, if the president is saying it's not going to happen, that is a pretty ironclad guarantee. However, again, like, there's the conspiracy brain here, which is like, this is coordinated between Bytedance and Trump, right? But the other part of my brain is like, okay, so here's what you have as a billion-dollar company. You have to rely on that you will not go to jail. Joe Biden's word.
Yeah.
It's like, is that a lot? Like, I just like,
nah.
I just like, but here's the other thing though. Clearly, Donald Trump's word is fine. Like, because that clearly worked, right? It's like, so you have the two people, I think, in the United States who I would least trust if they told me, trust me, bro, which is the former president and the incoming president. And it's just like, they're both saying, trust me, bro, it's going to be okay.
Well, Biden doesn't have much in the way of assurances.
Correct.
Right? Whereas Trump very easily could have given them some sort of assurance. We don't know.
Yeah.
Again, like tinfoil hat, conspiracy theory shit, all that. But
yes. I mean, like, to me, it sort of looks like this was designed to give Trump a big win on the day he comes into office. Because a lot of people...
They use his name directly.
They do. And
on the in-screen announcement.
They do. And you know what? If that's what it is, I totally understand that. But, like, I get it. You're a billion-dollar corporation. You got to do what you got to do. You're, like, damn near a state-level actor at that point. You got to curry favor with the incoming president, you go do it. The fact that TikTok went down the day before the inauguration and came up before the inauguration that the CEO of TikTok is going to be at, like, it doesn't not suggest that there could have been coordination there, is all I'm going to say. And
then Ben Brodus like, yo, why didn't you tell me? And it's like, come on.
Yeah, like, what are you going to do? Tell the Americans that you plan on doing this? I don't, like... Come on. Like, it's just like, you're assuming that is what happened, you would never tell any American about that. Why would you tell the Americans? Any American, ever. And I think what's really fascinating about it is that it sort of seems like, to me, that Second Dinner kind of just got screwed by this whole thing. Like,
they caught a stray. They caught a stray for sure.
Like, they caught the world's most insane stray. Again, like, if I'm supposed to believe what Ben Brode said, that they, like, received assurances that this wouldn't happen, and then it happened anyway. I don't really know another way to parse that. Like, I don't really know another way to take that statement seriously, other than to say, wow, that seems questionably legal. Like, that doesn't seem like the kind of thing that you can do. So I'm torn, because on the one hand, I am sympathetic in the abstract to a company like Bytedance being like, I can't believe you assholes are trying to strong arm us out of this country, so we have to sell to Mark Zuckerberg or whatever, right? I can't believe we have to get strong armed out and sold to Mr. Beast for no reason. We don't want to sell our business. We love it. We're making a ton of money. We shouldn't have to sell our business because we're Chinese. And I'm sympathetic to that, but at the same time, like, in a very real sense, their response to this, whether it be either throwing a tantrum in the context of, like, this is what it could be like, everyone get mad at them because they took away TikTok and Marvel Snap just gets hit in the crossfire, or explicitly doing it in order to curry favor with Donald Trump. Either way, what it did was take the game that I make money off of, that I have a, this is my livelihood, took it offline, either to curry favor with Donald Trump or to throw a fit about it. And I don't really, like, not good. That's really where I'm at.
It's kind of crazy, honestly, because there are a lot of people who exist in the gaming space who are able to pretty comfortably, I think, go through life and just do their thing, make their content, whatever, and just be like, yo, please, no politics. Like, let's not talk about it, you know, and that in and of itself is often a political statement, but like there's no escaping this
Yeah.
at that point. You know, it's like you thought that maybe like, oh, I'm just playing my little Marvel character game on twitch.tv. Surely I won't ever have to talk about these things. It won't ever matter for me. And then this just happens. You're like, what the hell?
Well,
I can't get away from this.
I think what's the most galling about the whole situation is the fact that TikTok came back up immediately, but Snap still isn't up.
Oh, yeah.
And
It's kind of weird.
I don't know if I would call that weird. I would call that like maybe there's just like a bunch of servers, right? And they were just like, we don't care about getting these ones up right now. That's not the priority. TikTok is international news. We care about that.
It's weird in so much as like it seems like they had a plan to flip the switch pretty quickly for TikTok, which is the important one, and the other stuff maybe they did not have an immediate plan for because
It's not the important one, right?
who cares all that much?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like this is effectively treating not just Marvel Snap, but like Newverse the company as like I don't think the other games are back up either. I'm not positive, but I don't believe they are. And or what any other game Newverse is involved in. And basically it's a negotiation. They're playing poker. The chip that is Marvel Snap fell on the floor. And they didn't even notice or care to pick it up. They just left it there. They're like, it's not our problem. We don't care. We have this giant pile of chips that is TikTok. We have to deal with that.
Yeah, you have your massive stack and you dropped a penny or whatever.
Yeah.
You're just like, it's fine.
Yeah. And I think that, like, you know, obviously it sort of reminds you how small all of us are, grand scheme, where it's like, this is a game that is supporting my livelihood. I pay my rent with money off of this game, and I am not the biggest creator in the space by any means. And it is the tiniest of tiny poker chips in this geopolitical brinksmanship between the Biden administration, the Trump administration, and TikTok and China. And it is a fascinating situation because like the more I think about it, it's like, okay, look, it's objectively the funniest thing that has ever happened to me to have my livelihood threatened by geopolitical Trump shit. Like that is the funniest thing possible. Because there is actually a third option here, which is that Trump is like the greatest negotiator of all time and got them back on board within 12 hours. And he's just like that friggin' cool and that dope and that sick. And I guess this is a good point at which we should probably, you know, do the personal politics disclaimer. I am not a fan of Donald Trump. I am also not a fan of Joe Biden. There are very few elected officials in American politics who represent the things that I actually believe. One of them, I think maybe the only one at this point, is Rashida Tlaib of Michigan. There are very few others. So understand that the perspective you're going to be getting here, if you are a Trump guy, I don't like your guy. And if you are a Biden guy, I also don't like your guy. I have not always been this way. I was a fairly mainstream Democrat for a little bit. That is not who I am anymore. You're going to say something.
I feel roughly the same way. Neither of those are my guys.
Yeah, these are not my guys. I find it hard to believe that any politician is anyone's guy ever, frankly. And I don't mean that in the sense of like, politics bad. I mean that in the very strict sense of like the two-party system that we have is sort of explicitly designed to do things that I am generally opposed to. And so when you talk about this, it's hard not to talk about what a fumble this is from the Biden administration. Like, it's hard not to, like, when you dive into the background here, what seems to have happened is they passed a ban that they realized was very unpopular. And the ban got tied into a package for Ukrainian aid. And that's the way in which it passed because Joe Biden was a big fan of, and is a big fan of, Ukraine and the ongoing war there with Russia, which I suspect they view as useful geopolitically because it drains an adversary and uses and it sort of gets the US companies an excuse to make a bunch of, you know, weapons and send them over there. The military industrial complex gets fed. Again, all just my opinions. Please don't get mad at me, or do. It's fine. I don't really care. I kind of expect it. We're doing a political episode. You're going to get mad at me. But this being thrown in there put the Biden administration in a position where they didn't really want to do anything about it, but they also didn't really want to do anything to stop it. This is like a very common position Democrats find themselves in, where they're like, how do I avoid all responsibility for this thing? I think student debt is one of the cases in which it was really clear to me, because my significant other has a decent amount of student debt. And while Biden was doing the student loan deferments, everything was very good for her. And then he decided, instead of doing the student loan deferments, he was going to try to get student debt actually canceled and take it to the Supreme Court, where it failed. And I think one way of looking at that would be, oh, well, they tried to get it done, but they just couldn't get it done. And another way of looking at that would be, they wanted to stop doing the deferments, so they did a plan they knew would fail at the Supreme Court, and so they just had an excuse to go point at the Republicans and say this is their fault. And
yeah,
a lot of what bothers me about Democrats is like that kind of crap, right? Like, it's like you have something that is working for people that you know is not going to get struck down by the Supreme Court, but instead, because you want to stop doing that thing, but want an excuse to stop doing that thing, you go out and act like you're fighting a good fight, only to give up and not actually get anything done ultimately. The ultimate...
Also,
yes, continue.
Also, they ran on that sort of stuff to begin with.
Yes. That's like the stuff that got them elected.
So yeah, that is the main thing that I hate. It's not even just like the kind of like, I don't know, half-assing it or whatever. It's like you straight up lied to people to get elected, knowing full well that you just didn't want to do any of this stuff.
Or that
And
if
then,
you tried to do it in a way that wasn't in your power, that you'd be able to point at the other guys and say it was their fault.
yeah, exactly. Which then sets you up for like maybe not the next election cycle, because they certainly didn't
Work.
campaign
Yeah.
on like anything like remotely left this time. But for the next one, like student debt, like Roe v. Wade, I'm sure all that stuff is going to come back.
Right. And when you talk about what the TikTok ban actually is in that context, it looks fairly similar in execution to that, which is just like, they didn't want to take a firm stance on it. They didn't want to be like, all right, I'm unpopular Joe Biden, let's become even more unpopular by banning TikTok. But in this sort of like kick the can down the road mode, right? What they didn't expect, and what people never seem to expect with Donald Trump, is his utter lack of commitment to any ideology whatsoever. He is a guy, and this is actually genuinely his strength, because people forget this about him. People forget that like what his 2016 campaign was focused on, you know, it was about him as an outsider in the party. It was about Ted Cruz is the real Republican, Jeb Bush is the real Republican, but that's not what the Republican voters wanted. They didn't want a real Republican. They wanted someone that was like him. And he recognized that. And he's always been able to do that. He doesn't actually have convictions. This TikTok ban stuff started under him. It was popular 4 years ago, so he was for it. Now it's unpopular, and he's tweeting "Save TikTok." Like, this has always been his strength, because where guys like Biden or Tom Cotton are ideologically committed to things, they have core beliefs that they got into politics in order to enact on massive scales. Trump is a showman. He's a wrestler. He wants to get cheered. He will do what gets cheered. That's what he wants to do. And so it's so easy for him to, as the Democrats kick this can down the road, thinking, ha ha, we're going to get one over on old Donald Trump. We're going to make him ban TikTok and not us. For him to just be like, well, we're not going to ban TikTok then. Win for me, L for you. And yeah. Like, this is sort of a microcosm of exactly how the Democrats keep getting outmaneuvered by this guy, is because they assume him to be like them, and he is not like them. He doesn't want to ban TikTok anymore. Do you know why he doesn't want to ban TikTok? There's been a lot of reporting on this. It's because he had a meeting with a guy who's a big investor in Bytedance and came away from it thinking, TikTok's pretty cool. And then someone told him, hey, you know, you're really popular on TikTok. And he was like, wow, that is really cool. And now he doesn't want to ban it because he wants to be liked. This is like so clear. He does not have the ideological commitment. And now Democrats are probably going to go off and be like hammering him, right? They're going to be like, he's falling for Chinese communist propaganda. He's letting China win. And it's one of those things. They don't know. We don't give a shit. They don't know. We don't care.
Everyone is just going to be like, yeah, I got my toy back.
Yes. Like, it's unbelievable. And the crossfire of all of this is Marvel Snap took the stray.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. One of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in my life.
It is bizarre because we're here, we're in the middle of it, right? Like this is a game we play. For you, you're making a living off it. I am simply enjoying you know, winning my Iron Patriot location or whatever. But
can we talk about that?
Just the card, or
no, like how I said Iron Patriot was gonna do Jan 6th, and then he did Jan 6th.
Oh yeah. Dude, leave it up to Norman, you know?
Dude, he actually took down the game. He did it. Jan 18th, baby. 666. He did it. It's Jan 666. My boy Norman cooked this game.
He did.
Oh my god.
I mean, he did a great job, honestly.
Much more successful than the actual Jan 6.
So I know his numbers are not like overwhelming or whatever. I know that the card is very polarizing.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that if the card got nerfed, a lot of people would be very happy.
Ooh, you think so?
I think so.
I think people would be mad.
Really?
Yeah, he's like super popular and he's not like, oh my god, I hate him. Like, if you nerf him, I think the people that are going to be happy are like people like me. And then like anyone who bought him will just be like, I hate you, Second Dinner, you actual pieces of shit. Which, popular.
But they say that no matter what.
Yeah, it's a popular take right now.
It is just a popular take.
I saw much.
Dude, yeah, I saw so many people that were just like, they knew, obviously they knew. I spent money today and they could have just told me, but no, they had to get me for like my extra $20 or whatever. And it's like,
brother,
you're not the main character. Do you understand that?
Not only do I think they didn't know, based on public statements, it seems like they were aware that it was possible, and they were like, hey, boss, is this going to happen? And they were told no. Like they were like, okay, well, we have firsthand information from the source that it's not going to happen. So what are we going to, why do we have to worry about it, right?
And it doesn't sound like it was a wishy-washy no. It sounds like it was a very hard, like,
it sounds like they were told no when they asked about it. And like, so the idea that Second Dinner knew about this and they were like, whoa, okay. We know that in 10 months, this game is going to get banned, which I will say, huge shout out to the guy on Reddit who like actually 10 months ago read the bill and was like, this could apply to Marvel Snap. That's crazy. Like I gotta give it up for that guy. I saw someone
point that out today too.
Gotta give it up for the Redditor. Like, you know, I won't even call it like broken clock syndrome. That's just a great rip. Like you nailed it, Mr. Reddit detective. But I mean, like, it's starting to look like the thing that happened here is they were like, oh, is this possible? And they like, you know, had a lawyer look at it and they talked to the companies and they were like, oh, okay, it's not going to happen. We're not worried about this. It won't affect us at all because, I don't know, because Second Dinner controls the game and so it's not actually a subsidiary of Newverse or whatever the hell, right? And they clearly or seemed to have good reason to believe that. And it ended up not being true. So, you know, shout out to the Reddit on one hand, but I do think there is a lot of like, I feel like if I believed that the people who ran a game I was playing were lying to me and manipulating me for profit, and that I could not believe a single word that they say, I probably would not play that game. And the weird thing about all the Reddit complaints is that they seem to be people who will continue to play the game. And
it is weird behavior.
I don't really get it, but you know, I mean, it might get us some free stuff. So shout out to Reddit, I suppose.
They did already post a thing about comp.
Yeah, they better. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was really mad about this when we didn't have a timeline. And I was like, all right, so their compensation needs to be insane. And I still think that's probably true. Like, their compensation for something like this, because, like, bluntly, I don't really care if it's incompetence or malice. You have to make it right regardless. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter ultimately whether or not you were blindsided by TikTok. I find the details fascinating because I'm a politics freak, but you probably don't, because actually, I guess if you're 35 minutes into this podcast, maybe you do too, you absolute fucking freak. But
maybe Marvel Snap is the thing that's going to radicalize some people, you know? Like, that's just dope.
Yo, there was a post on the Reddit again that was like, I actually started reading the Communist Manifesto because of this.
Let's go.
It was a joke, but still, like, I do think the gamers, gamers capital G, could use a reasonable education into why things are the way that they are, and why they feel the way that they do, and why they feel like they're getting bled for every dollar, and it's because they are. It's a more profitable relationship to the company because you and every company's interests are diametrically opposed. You want to spend less money, and they want you to spend more, and they have a lot more people who are working on getting you to spend more money than you are on getting to spend less money. This is not a relationship that is symbiotic. It is a relationship that is adversarial, and their job is to bleed you as much as possible. And I think a lot of gamers are mad about that, but they can't recognize it for what it is, which is the economic system we operate under rather than anything else.
So, I'm not a capitalist, right?
Sure.
But I will say, I remember back in the day when you bought a game for like $50 and you got the complete game, and that was cool. Now I'm playing a lot of gacha games.
Yeah.
And it does hit a bit different when a character comes out and it's like $100+ to get said character. To guarantee it. But it's like, oh, maybe if you win the coin flip, you get it early. It only costs you like $70 or whatever. And that, I would say,
just
overall the experience,
cashes, bro.
Yeah, exactly. I would say overall the experience is bad, but it does make me feel some kind of way.
You are describing the high of a gambler.
Yes, that is exactly what I'm describing. I'm fully aware.
Okay.
I don't know. I think that, like, if we could just like snap our fingers and make the world not a capitalist place, where that feeling just doesn't exist, I'd be fine with it. But I think if you took it away, I might be a little sad, a little bit, a tiny amount sad. I could probably find other ways to fulfill those feelings.
Right.
You know,
I think the frustrating thing about these tactics as money-making tactics is that they objectively work. Like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
They objectively work by doing the thing that you're describing. They obscure the actual amount spent. They trick our brains. They do all of this stuff. And the reason a company wants to do that is because the company wants to make money. And the reason a company wants to make money is usually to grow larger. I don't think we really need to justify why money needs to be made to be a company. But a lot of the time, especially in a publicly traded company, the reason you need to make money is because you have stockholders. Your investors need to see their lines go up. And in a privately owned company, especially even something like a venture capital company, I mean, you have to actually make money. People invested in you, right? Like, that is, I guess VC is a little different because a lot of the time they're just sort of gambling too. They're just like, well, $15 million here, who actually cares? But we could get paid off huge if it goes big. But
see, dude, that's what I'm saying. That's how I could get that feeling back.
Yes. Doing venture capital in the communist society. All right.
Yes.
So the thing I'm really getting at here is this is the politics episode, so I guess we're just going to do all the politics stuff here. Gamers writ large could really do with understanding why things keep getting worse. And the answer to why things keep getting worse is companies keep getting better at bleeding you. That's just the nature of it. And the reason they keep getting better...
The answer is me, is I keep falling for it.
Well, but like the reason they are incentivized to do that is because they are run by people, especially big publicly traded companies, who have a fiduciary duty to their investors to make the most money possible. That is their job. It is borderline illegal for them not to try to make the most money possible.
Okay, like what exactly is the legality behind fiduciary duty?
So when Elon Musk bought Twitter, he made a bid that was so far above the actual value of the shares that they felt like they legally had to take it. They could not dismiss it out of hand because it would be so beneficial for their shareholders. Even though, bluntly, it seemed like he was joking at the time, they still had to take it seriously because of the implication for their shareholders.
Yeah, I mean, they said okay, and then he was like, "Nah, I don't even want to do it." You know, like he tried to get out of it.
Yes, but it's like it's one of those things where you're not gonna like not be fulfilling your fiduciary duty by not trying to squeeze every dollar out of everything possible. But you also don't get promoted to be the CEO of a company by not being the kind of person who would do that anyway. You don't get to that position without being willing
The kind
to
of person who sets up an algorithm to deny 94% of insurance claims, like that kind of thing.
Yes, indeed. Like the kind of person who runs a healthcare company that denies 30% of their claims, which is like 15% more than their closest competition.
I think you might be onto something.
Yeah. So a lot of the way this stuff works is like systemic, where it's not necessarily like they have to be this way, but if they weren't this way, they wouldn't be in the positions that they hold. And that is a function of them being valuable, because what that person does is bring shareholder value in. That is what a person like that does. They make the line go up at your expense because you're spending more. You're getting bled by whatever tactics they're using, right? That's when we talk about why gaming is worse. That's why gaming is worse. It's financial instruments. These are not people in their basements making games for the love of making games. They are companies that are numbers on balance sheets of bigger companies. And that's reality. Second Dinner is honestly kind of as close to as good as it gets in that world. And obviously, that's not a very good spot to be in when you get used as a bargaining chip by accident between China and the United States.
Well, yeah, maybe try and publish yourself, I guess, is the lesson here. I don't know.
I don't know what the hell the lesson here is. I think there's a bunch of people in my comments who will be like, the lesson here is never do business with China. And it's like, I don't really think that's the lesson, but yeah, I can see how you get that takeaway.
That one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Again, it's like, I can see how you get there. I just like, I don't know. I'm very sympathetic to, I kind of feel like I'm sympathetic to everyone involved here except the politicians. Like, I'm sympathetic to Second Dinner, especially the people that work there. I'm even sympathetic to the people at Newverse and Bytedance, assuming that this wasn't like an intentional blindsiding, in which case I'm not sympathetic. But I'm not sympathetic for. Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Tom Cotton, Chris Murphy, not sympathetic for them at all.
No. I mean, if anything, it feels like it is a Bytedance call, right? Like Bytedance was the one who voluntarily took down everything from the App Store, as far as we know.
That is what seems to be the case, yes.
Yeah, because, I mean, the law wasn't, like, forcing them off the platforms.
Because there's another wrinkle here. It made it illegal for Apple to host anything by them. So Apple is also complying with the law by doing this. So, again, the people who are responsible for this are the United States Congress, Joe Biden, Donald Trump. Those are the people who are actually ultimately responsible for this. And whether or not even if you think Bytedance did blindside them, I find it hard to believe that if I put myself in the shoes of Bytedance and look at this and I'm like, okay, this is weird. But I find it hard to believe that I wouldn't leave the country too. I find that hard to believe. Like, if all you have to go on is trust me, bro, from the outgoing president who just lost an election and is 80 million years old. And all you have to go on is that guy's word. And meanwhile, it becomes illegal for your apps to exist on the App Store. Yeah, I mean, I would probably do something like this too. I would also do something of a similar nature.
I don't know about that because, like I said, does you being up outweigh the amount of potential fines
Sure.
you would pay?
Yeah.
And from what I gather from these sorts of things, it is way cheaper to simply pay fines and
Yeah.
continue operating in whatever unethical means that you're doing so. You know, like you could point to any number of big uh big industries, right? And I think things are pretty similar there. It's never like, oh, they had to pay so many fines, like they shut down. It's like, no, they laughed and cut a check or whatever because it's minuscule compared to the amount of money that they're making.
Yes.
And when we're talking about TikTok, well, I feel like that's probably not that far removed.
Well, TikTok is making all that money. Marvel Snap is not. So it's
No,
like
no, of course.
at this point, it's like Marvel Snap's just not worth it for them to like go through the effort for. TikTok, they'll go through the effort for. They're making billions and billions of dollars.
That's why I think that they had a plan to get TikTok back up immediately, and then the other stuff was like, hey, well, they can wait a few days. It's fine.
Yeah, like it's honestly like I find it. It's hard not to look at the situation and come away with the conclusion that Second Dinner kind of got screwed over here. I don't really know that they did, because it's possible that they were doing the screwing over, right? Like they could have been doing that. I doubt it based on like their statements publicly and that I generally trust them, but maybe I'm just a simp, you know? I got called a simp a lot for saying that.
Well, here's the thing. I think here's the big thing that you can point to is like, given that using VPNs to access these things that are illegal was specifically called out in the bill, right?
No. That seems, as far as I can tell, again, not a lawyer, and it would probably take a court case to decide this. But as far as I can tell, the bill does not explicitly make it illegal to use a VPN. Like I saw the screenshot that Dexter had of that Discord post as well. It's referring to basically, like, what that seems to be referring to is more like the Newverse store in function rather than using a VPN to access the service. So it would be like running a secondary store for the game so that people in the United States can buy stuff without actually having to log on to the game. It seems to be more referring to that context than a VPN. Again, but, though, this is like the
not for Snap though, for TikTok. Like, could you just VPN to TikTok?
You couldn't, not because of a legal restriction, but because it is tied to your SIM card. So they know you're in the United States regardless. So no one can get onto TikTok from their phone because they are unable to fully utilize a VPN to make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah, it just doesn't work the same way.
I think that makes sense because, yeah, I think people were saying like, oh, it works for Snap, but not for...
Yeah, it does work for Snap and not for TikTok. And that's because TikTok is more tied to your phone's identity than Snap is.
Okay.
Snap is tied to Google accounts and Apple accounts. Totally different.
Yeah. So what I was going to say was the fact that Broad was saying, like, he initially said, like, oh, you can use VPN to access Snap.
Yes.
And that sounded like a bad idea. That sounded like a thing that people should not be doing. That because he was giving kind of like this bad advice, that would mean that he was blindsided by all of this. I think that illustrates that to me.
I don't even think it's bad advice. I just think that like he made he's been active on Thread. I gotta say, like, I know I'm an asshole for saying this, but Mr. Ben Brode, if anything ever demanded you come back to the hell site that is Twitter, it probably is this. Like, I'm sorry, but Threads and Blue Sky do not have the reach. They just don't. This is I would expect. I don't know. I on one level I respect, the political and or moral stance he's taking, sure. But on the other, it's like your game just got banned. Come on, man.
I have 40K on Twitter. I believe that is suppressed to some degree. Plus, a lot of it is like people who no longer use the platform or whatever, right? And then I have 2K on Blue Sky.
Yeah. Like,
it's pretty comical, honestly.
yeah. And it's like, okay, man. I feel like if you're gonna say stuff like in an official capacity, like there was a statement he made. I'm calling it a statement. It was a tweet or whatever it is they call them on Blue Sky. It was a skeet. They he said he's
so
like
stupid, dude. So
we're
stupid.
we're on a Zoom call right now trying to unfuck this, and it's like so the entire company is on a Zoom call right now trying to unfuck this apparently, and it's like I don't know, like. It doesn't, none of their behavior seems to suggest that they had the slightest clue that this would happen, is what I'm saying. It's possible that they knew it was a possibility and were assured that it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that if rando Redditor 10 months ago looked at it and was like, oh, this, like, Snap could fall under the purview of this, then yeah, they should have at least known what that person knew, probably.
I did a little bit of Googling to figure out
that they had some assurances. I don't know.
I did a little bit of Googling, and as far as I could tell, they have a one legal, like their legal department is one guy. So, like, at that point, I don't know. Like, I feel like Johnny legal department is like he got a contract out, right? I don't know. I do think it's sort of indicative. Like, I would imagine, like, with a startup company, you probably have outside legal counsel, and they probably were consulted. And here's the real thing: what if their outside legal counsel is via Newverse and or Bytedance? Like, what if those are like, what if it's, oh, let me go talk to the lawyers, and you're talking about the lawyers for Newverse and Bytedance? Like, what if that's what that means?
It's entirely possible, and yeah, who knows if they are, like, they're clearly acting on the best interest of their owner, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily this person that you are contracting with. So I would hope that you would get probably different legal counsel at that point. It seems like there's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, again,
what do I know?
I don't know. I don't know how this happened, but ultimately the chain of events seems to be that Second Dinner believes this to not be a possibility, that it happens regardless, and that it happens either because of an explicit or implicit attempt to curry favor with the incoming administration. That's the bottom line here. This is all just maneuvering for headlines. And those headlines then to be used to make a guy who is fairly malleable in his personal beliefs more amenable to taking a deal that is more favorable to TikTok and Bytedance. That seems to be what happened.
Which is kind of funny, though, because I feel like Trump's only at that table because he is already in favor of keeping TikTok
His
around.
His plan's actually kind of wild. He wants them to sell like half of it to the U.S. government, which is like, it's kind of a lot. Like I mean,
let's be real. The U.S. government is a corporation, so it does.
We're getting into some funny stuff now. Are you familiar with a sovereign citizens?
Oh, I am. Yeah.
Yeah. The U.S. government is a corporation. But you can't get a birth certificate because that's what signs you over to the corporation.
Yeah, I mean, not that way. I just mean they run as a business, right?
Not really, I would say. I think it would be more accurate to describe the U.S. government as the bureaucratic arm of an imperial state, where it's more like a collection of like scheming viziers from the Forbidden City in China than it is like a company, I would say.
Sure. I mean that. Yeah, I guess I agree with that more, but.
It's more like if you
in terms of like
Jafar from Aladdin. That's
why clone him? Just use actual Jafar.
But you need like 150 of him, and that's like only for like a minority party in the House.
Yeah, fair. Anyway, it seems weird, but I was just like, I don't know. It's like not that much weirder than anything else. It's like
I guess like in the context of what the United States is trying to do to Bytedance, which is basically saying you are not allowed to operate in this company in this country because you are Chinese. We need you to sell to an American. And like I don't know, just there is a part of me that gets offended at that. Like just basically ethically, where I obviously I'm not a geopolitics expert, right? Like, but the idea that it's somehow worse for the Chinese people to have my data than it is for the billionaires that I hate to have my data. I don't know. Like I'm sure there's like some actual reason for it, but I can't figure out what the fuck it actually is. And
I mean,
yeah.
it is funny because clearly our data is valuable, right? But I think it is, yeah, far more valuable for the people who are here and exploiting it versus like whatever the hell it is China can do with it.
Yeah, like
So
what
there's like,
are they gonna do for me? Serve me ads on websites I don't visit? Oh no.
yeah,
You gonna use my face ID to unlock my phone? I don't have that. Like what is actually the risk to me? As a human being, what is the risk to me of having TikTok on my phone or Xiaohongshu? Which insanely funny TikTok subplot is that as the ban approached, an even more Chinese app owned directly by China, as opposed to like via subsidiaries the way TikTok is, Xiaohongshu, Red Note,
little red book, like,
I saw that it was Little Red Book. I don't know. I assume that's intentional. I don't know.
oh yeah,
And
that I get the impression it is, yeah.
yes, and
Which rules?
it is insanely funny. I saw a meme that was Obi-Wan Kenobi talking to Darth Vader, and it was like, "If you strike me down, I will become more Chinese than you ever thought possible," and like reference to people leaving TikTok for Xiaohongshu. And for the record, I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation, but I'm trying. And so this is, I, I guess it's just a very fascinating situation because it seems like ultimately, I mean, like my fundamental core beliefs are that people have more in common than they don't, right? I have more in common than your average Chinese man of my socioeconomic status, or even not my socioeconomic status, than I do with Elon Musk. I find
Oh,
more common ground with the common men of any country, men, women, I should be clear, I'm using it as a colloquial phrase, than I do with anyone who has $1 billion. Like that's just where I am. And not to get too like religious about this, because I don't like to do that, and I don't really think of it as religious so much as just like an example of my upbringing, but like I'm Jewish, right? And one of the fundamental underpinnings of being a Jew in this modern era is an understanding of the plight of the oppressed. And this, for me, is why it was so horrific to watch what was happening in Gaza at the hands of Israel, because it is something that is so core to me in as much as in as much as I retain of my Jewish faith and identity, which I have not been very observant in a very long time. I'm very, Americanized, right? But what I retain is that I was a stranger in a strange land. What I retain is to do justice and love mercy and walk humbly before thy God. And that has always given me a natural empathy for those in a downtrodden position. And it's hard not to look at the US strong arming this company and see that there. I realize, of course, that this is a $1 billion company and they're not downtrodden at all. Like, I'm not
yeah.
stupid. They are a $1 billion company that probably does awful stuff because that's what a $1 billion company is. I don't think you can be a company of that scale and be anything even close to good. I don't think you can be a nation state on the scale of China or the US and be morally good. That is not something you care about. And the the ways in which this is sort of like the ways in which this sort of interplays to me is, I feel like a lot of the criticism of Bytedance comes from a place of like very explicit xenophobia. China bad. Period. At the same time, I feel like it's entirely possible that maybe my livelihood was just put in jeopardy so they could do a political stunt to suck up to Donald Trump. So it's not like I'm like the biggest fan, you know what I mean? Like, but I'm having trouble parsing where legitimate critique ends and where xenophobia begins.
Yeah, I think that all of that is fair. Uh Again, Snap absolutely caught a stray,
Yeah.
right? But I think that if at the end of the day, ByteDance feels like they are going to secure something akin to being able to operate freely in the US, and then like Snap as a result will be free instead of like who knows what would happen after like the 90-day
Yeah.
extension or
Yes.
whatever. Like it is maybe better for you. I don't know if Second Dinner would have found a plausible solution before then, like found another publisher or whatever it is that they would have to do. I don't know. But I feel like ByteDance, much like Trump, are simply trying to play the game to the best of their ability. And like to some degree, you kind of got to respect that,
I,
even if you do end up catching strays,
I don't know.
you know?
Like, I don't know if I gotta respect it. I really don't.
If they're playing it well, I respect it.
I'm not I see, like, I feel like there's a natural tendency among people of our political persuasion to just be like, well, if the US doesn't like them, they must be doing something right. And it's like, yeah, but also they're probably just as bad in like the context in which they're not as bad is a context in which they're not allowed to be as bad. The US is allowed to be what it is as an empire because of its power, because of its reach, because of what it does. There aren't other countries that do what we did in Iraq and fly halfway around the globe to devastate a country and kill millions of people because other countries are not capable of it. Everyone else who is capable of it, it's stuff in their backyard, right? No one else is flying around the globe to do it. That's just
Yeah.
us. We're the only people who do that because we're the only people who have the capacity. And I think that leads to a lot of left wing people being like, well, we are worse because we are doing it. But it's a question of capacity, not of morals. And it's the kind of thing that I suspect that any country who found themselves in the position of being the dominant world power, they do shit like this.
Maybe. Yeah, it's hard to say. I do think that like all power corrupts, right? Like
Yeah.
just straight up it does generally. And so I think that there is an element of truth to that. I think it can corrupt in different ways, right? Like I don't know that it would necessarily mean like, oh, well suddenly I'm going to go, you know, do like these uprisings in third world countries and install people who are more favorable to us or whatever. Like they may find different ways to go about things
But the
in
goals will
theory.
be the same and the resources at their
Ultimately,
disposal will allow for the same actions, right? Like
yes. Yeah.
that what is it? War is politics by other means. Politics is war by other means. Like this stuff just happens to reach certain policy goals. And I guess with all of that in mind, I guess I'm probably going to get canceled for doing this episode because I think this is the most I've ever talked about my politics and I am aware they're fairly fringe views. Like these are not uh common views. I'm wearing a shirt from Rashida Tlaib right now. She's the only politician who roughly represents these views. That's one person out of the 400 in the House of Representatives. There's zero in the Senate, maybe Bernie Sanders, and there's zero in the White House. And so I guess what I'm saying is like, I fully expect some abuse on this one. I'll deal. It's okay. And if you have different political views than me, I guess I should say I generally do try to be roughly tolerant or as tolerant as I can of that stuff. The only hard lines I'm really going to draw are like active bigotry. So please do try to
Yep.
avoid that in the comments. But like active bigotry, transphobia, homophobia, racism, all that shit, not happening. People are people, fundamental belief here. Everything else, like if you're just like a taxes Republican guy, like I don't agree with you, and I think you're short sighted, but I don't hate you the way that you might expect, probably.
I mean, I think people are very selfish up to a point, and a lot of that has to do with bandwidth to some degree.
Yeah.
Where, like, for example, when I was younger and broke and just like struggling to make ends meet and to make sure that I'm fed and whatnot, uh, I don't have a lot of bandwidth to think about other stuff, to like care about other people, to think about other folks' plight besides my own, right? Like the only thing going on in the immediate future is like I need to be taken care of. I need my needs met. And when it got to a point where my needs were being met, I found that I had a little bit more freedom of bandwidth to focus on these other things. And like certainly that extends to like friends and family, like people I care about genuinely, but like now it extends to people who I don't know, like folks in Gaza, for example.
Yeah.
And I have more bandwidth to care about those sorts of things and to spend my time and my voice, my resources on trying to help those sort of things.
Yeah.
A
And
lot of people get to that point and still choose to focus their bandwidth inward.
right.
And I don't know why that is.
This is why I tend to reserve my true vitriolic hatred for elected officials. The people who are actually taking action. People like Greg Abbott of Texas, or Tom Cotton, or Ron DeSantis, or Donald Trump, or Joe Biden. Although I think it's debatable the degree to how much Joe Biden was taking action in the last few years of his presidency.
Taking naps, maybe.
Yeah, it's a little debatable, sure. But like, I tend to be focused on outcomes and what has been delivered and what people are doing and what is actually getting there, right? And so a lot of my critiques of the Democrats tend to be in the vein of I don't think they actually care about the stuff that I care about. I think they want to get my vote, but I don't think they care enough about it to actually do the things that I want them to do. And my source on this is that they absolutely fucking never do those things no matter what. And with Republicans, it seems more like my critique is they are doing things that are directly counter to my interests, where Democrats very often will pay lip service to things that I want. Republicans will say like, you're a communist and we gotta like kill everybody in China. We gotta turn the Middle East into glass, and just like stuff like that, right? Where it's like, that's like I think a Ted Cruz quote where he was like, I don't know if sand glows in the dark, but we're gonna find out. And it's like, I will hate you for that. I will hate Ted Cruz for that. Fuck Ted Cruz. Like, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. Like, it's pathetic posturing at being a big man from one of the littlest men in the world. And I don't generally try to hate people for the decisions they make in the voting booth. But I will hate the results of those decisions, and I do understand why people get mad the other way. Like, there are a lot of uniquely dog shit politicians in the United States. And whether that's Eric Adams in New York, who takes bribes from Turkey and then writes emails where he's like, hello, this is Mayor Eric Adams. Have you arranged the bribe that you are going to send to me? Or whether that's Greg Abbott in Texas, who got his legs paralyzed by a tree, got a massive insurance settlement out of it, and then signed a bill that capped the amount you could get from insurance settlements like the one that he got after he got his settlement. This kind of shit happens everywhere. And I do hate them. I'm just going to be super clear about that one. I might not hate you for your politics, but I do hate them.
I think that is completely fine and reasonable.
Yeah, that's sort of where I'm at. Anyway, do you want to talk about Marvel Snap a little bit? An hour into the podcast?
I played like 2 games today.
Yeah? How'd you do it? You in Canada?
I moved to Canada.
Yeah. I actually wanted to talk about compensation specifically.
Okay.
Because I think that frankly, Second Dinner has a chance here to actually do something great and turn this into a positive.
I think the thing that I saw most is people were like, "Oh, I can't wait for my 200 credits and my pixel variant or
Yeah.
whatever." And first of all, I like the pixel variants. All right. I wish that I could get a pixel variant for comp. That's just me though. I understand. But clearly, yeah, the bar it's low.
I don't
It's
even
on the
understand why
ground.
the bar is
Yeah.
low. Like, they've never done bad compensation.
Well, they very rarely do compensation, period.
But like when they do it, it's very generous.
The like what 2 times that it
Right.
has happened?
But like
I mean,
the US agent compensation is like everyone gets him, everyone who got him gets him and a full refund, right? The compensation for the variant that was painted by that guy who is terrible was everyone gets a new one and a full refund, right? The compensation has always been like actually fairly generous, right? Like I saw a meme on Reddit that was like handing out like it was like the Hulk handing the taco to Don Cheadle in Endgame, and it was like 20 boosters. And it was like, they've never given us that little. It's never happened. But
no, it's just like, oh, when a card gets nerfed, you don't get anything.
yes. And I think that like my take on this is right now Marvel Snap has more attention on it from the public than it ever has. And one way to capitalize on that attention would be to be extremely fucking generous with how they plan on doing this compensation. So when I say
it would be kind of sick, like now that it is national news or international news, even like I saw a person who wandered into your stream who was like, oh, I've never played this game before, but I just heard about what was going on. This looks kind of dope, actually.
Right. Like, they have a chance, a real chance to, like, okay, imagine the following timeline, all right? Tomorrow, the game goes back up. They announce compensation. Everyone gets 8,000 credits and 6,000 collector's tokens. Okay? Everyone gets...
Hold, because there's also a lot of other things going on.
Right.
There's like the Dark Avengers playing thing. There was like Twitch drop happening.
Okay, yeah, no. Everyone gets...
There's the season pass.
Yes. Everyone gets the Null, the X23, season pass XP, the
Alliance
missions, premium mystery variants, all that, right? And then they also give you a bunch more stuff, right?
Give me my 75 credits a day that I was definitely not going to get.
Yes, give me my 75 credits a day. But like, if they hit that bar and then exceed that bar,
I hope that since I logged in, I still get whatever comp they're giving me instead of them just being like,
I stayed online. I stayed online for 10 hours after.
Dude, I saw that.
Yes. I was like, I am not logging off. I refuse. And the reason I don't have a VPN is because, bluntly, I don't know how to use one. So
it's super easy.
I literally have no idea. I'm actually currently in the process of looking into a VPN sponsorship for an upcoming video because I think that would be an insanely funny joke.
It is beyond simple. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
And this is I've used I think 3 VPNs total now.
Okay. Anyway, I haven't done it, and it looks like the game will be up tomorrow, so I might not have to. But
yeah,
this whole thing is, my brain is so fried, dude. I've slept for like 3 hours in the past 24. Like,
yeah, I saw you made a video on this too.
Yeah, it's just there's and then after I made the video, some more stuff happened. I might have to go back and update that video. Anyway, the point is, Second Dinner, if they're generous here and they don't fuck us, could really reset the narrative on this game. Currently, this game has the most searches it has had in its lifetime. It is national news. This is part of one of the biggest news stories happening right now. You will get mentioned in things that actually matter. And if
most in the context of like, oh, Marvel Snap, thank God. I thought you meant Marvel Rivals.
And if you're extremely generous with the comp, maybe that breaks through too. A bunch of people come along and they see this game being very generous in a context that they don't necessarily have to be. They see it, they see them trying to make up this service disruption to their customers. Then, in Q1, carrying on that momentum, you announce the larger series drops that you plan to happen. Then, after that, you announce an economy rework. Suddenly, you have saved Marvel Snap, all thanks to China.
This is a lot of praging going on.
Yes, it's a lot of cope. But like I'm just saying, like, as someone who does Marvel Snap, there has been a coherent worry for me of a downward trend continuing. And when something like this happens, that is this big, if you capitalize on it in the right way, I can't imagine it would not be good for the company.
No, it would be massive. Absolutely.
And I feel like this is a chance, like, they have a chance right now to either let the game die or make it right and prove to the community that they are worth trusting. And that's, I think, what they have to do.
I don't know that they can prove that necessarily, because the community is just going to continue to be distrusting, whether or not that is for good reasons or not.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, clearly everyone is just assuming that the bar is on the ground. You're like, why is that? And I think it's reasonable. It's just it is just kind of a running joke at this point to do the Hulk to Don Cheadle taco 20 booster meme, because people are just so used to it.
Yeah, because normally it's nothing when your deck gets nerfed. Yeah.
Right. And dude, especially if it's like the season pass card, and it's like, you spend actual money on this, but I think you do this kind of stuff enough, and then someone posts that taco meme, and then people are just like, bro, what the hell are you talking about? Last time they just paid out like gangbusters.
Yes. Like, this is a chance to bluntly reclaim a narrative that I think they've lost control of. I do not think they have control of their narrative in their own community right now. And I think that doing something good here could give them control of their narrative in their own community for the first time since like the beta.
It could also backfire, but I feel like you need to try. You need to try and do something. Yes, it could go badly, but there's no way that it goes worse than if you like undershoot and things just get worse. It spirals out of control, right? So I totally agree with you, but I would not be surprised if people complain anyway. That's all I'm saying.
I'm not saying that they can't complain. I'm saying that like the compensation should be generous enough that people sit up and take notice. This is the time to go big. This is, and I again, this is coming from someone who does this as a content creator. My video on this topic is like my most watched video in 6 months, within 10 hours of posting. Like, there are people who are interested in Marvel Snap right now, and they are interested in it for the wrong reasons. But if there's one lesson that I think you can learn from Donald Trump as a human and politician, it is that it doesn't matter why people are interested in you. It matters that they know your name. And if they know your name, you can change their mind.
This is definitely true. And I think that they should try. And I think that there isn't much to lose by trying to go big here.
Yeah. So if anyone knows how to get in contact with Second Dinner and be like, you guys this is your time. You got it. This is like, not only is this like, you need to scramble to make it up to people, it's also like, you have a real opportunity here. There is a real opportunity for this company right now.
Legitimately, like, I would say, I know that this is small potatoes compared to like the player base at large, but it was just like, I want the game to succeed. And so I don't know, just don't give me any comp. And if that helps you like redistribute more comp to other players, like, please just do that,
Yeah. We should tax the high CL players in order to benefit the low CL players. I actually unironically believe this, by the way.
Like, I think I would fight more to get that through in our country.
Sure.
So than in
but
Snap.
That it is more impactful because the disparity is also larger, right?
Yeah,
you think playing a Series 1 deck against the Series 5 deck is bad. Try not being a billionaire.
Yeah.
It's
a little different.
You think RNG is bad. Try not being born with a trust fund.
Jeez. Can't imagine life without my trust fund.
Yeah.
You know, things would be
Oh
so
man, I can't
weird.
believe I rolled this badly on the character creator. I don't have a trust fund. All I am is good at card games.
That was like a rumor about me for a time, which I thought was hilarious given like how broke ass I was for so long.
Yeah, you
I was
like
like,
you do not have trust fund vibes. I think of the two of us, I do.
well, I don't think it's me. I don't think that's like a slight on you or
Yeah.
anything, but
No, I actually think I like all seriousness. Like my parents are upper middle class, right? Like they were like intelligence workers in the sense of like they were desk people, right? Like they weren't like laborers, you know? These are like
yeah.
people who used their brains to make money. And so, I mean, I don't know what upper middle class, everyone calls himself middle class, but I think, you know, my upbringing was fairly good and reasonable. I believe I actually did have a trust fund, but I also think it was like intended to pay for college and then didn't need to be used for that. But I had a college fund, right? Like that puts it's a huge leg up over so many people in America.
Yeah, I didn't go to college. I didn't have any
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. I also have a GED. Weird stories there. But it's what?
I I did technically graduate. I don't have a GED, but I also didn't go to high school for the last 6 months. And I got the pass.
Ah, yeah.
Like I didn't get actual grades. They just passed me.
That rocks. Talk about winning a coin flip. Just pass fail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Nice.
is good enough. It
Yeah.
was like, yeah, he's kind of smart. He just doesn't really apply himself. And it's like, me not attending for 6 months,
Yeah, I mean that
that counts
does.
as not applying. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you're not applying
Yeah.
yourself. I
No,
definitely are not. Yeah, at that point. I think
I couldn't argue. I couldn't argue.
I feel like
I took the pass.
attendance is a requisite part of applying yourself, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of
Couldn't be
have to,
bothered.
yeah, you kind of have to be there in order to apply yourself.
Those moto draft queues were not going to fill themselves.
Ain't that the truth? Actually, that's back in the day. Maybe they were going to fill themselves.
I was hanging out in the Rochester queue.
Ooh.
So
Ooh.
those were not going to fill themselves.
Yeah, I was talking with BBD the other day, and like I'm in a Discord where we talk about football. He sent me a picture. He's like, "What do you guys think about this?" And it was a playoff fantasy football draft, which is to say he like spent the $1 to $5 to enter in this and drafted players that were going to be playing in the NFL playoffs. Here's the thing. The NFL playoffs are structured in such a way that teams lose and then are no longer part of the playoffs.
Right.
And so it's like this insanely degenerate combination of futures betting and normal fantasy football, where like not only are you like, all right, I need to take a flyer on this guy, but he's not playing in the first week of the playoffs because he's on the Detroit Lions and the Lions have a bye, so I need to take a second tight end to play in the first week of the playoffs, and then if the Lions lose, which they did by the way, I have nobody left for the championship. It's like it's the most degenerate shit I've ever seen in my entire life. And he posted it and he was like, "What do you guys think about this? It's a 3-man. These are my..." Just like, I have the least possible frame of context for this. Like,
Yep.
I am a fantasy football guy to some degree. I have never even contemplated doing this. Like, it is the Rochester draft of fantasy football is where the connection here.
Yeah, it is. That sounds pretty weird, but also like the thing that you're talking about where like your Lions lose and now you don't have a tight end or whatever.
Yes.
It's just like what that's happening to everyone else too, presumably, right?
Yes,
So
the RNG, you got mana screwed, right? Don't complain about it. But it is like a very, it's just like, what I find the funniest about the interaction was that he posted it like asking us for input, like any of us were even close to understanding it. Like
yeah.
imagine just posting a random pack one pick one from a set I've never seen.
Yeah, or a set that comes out in 10 years.
Yes.
You know?
Like that's what it felt like. It was just like pack one, pick one, no context whatsoever.
When I worked on MH1, they showed me like a pamphlet. It was like a 3-page printout of future cards.
Yeah.
that could be relevant to this modern product that we're working on, right? And one of the cards was just like, whenever you play a historic card, do whatever. And I was like, what the hell's a historic card? Because there was no reminder text or anything. It was like that.
That's exactly it. Like, it's like someone showed you like Kethis the whatever the fuck before they knew what the word historic means. That's what it's like.
Yeah, it was Tashar actually, but
sure.
yeah, same deal.
It's exactly like that. Or it's like, what does this word mean? I have no way of understanding what this is.
And they just like shrug at you. You're like, is it good or not? Put it in your decks or not? I'm just like,
Oh my god, that rocks, dude. That's like that's so cool. I want that job, but for Snap, where they just like show me a card and I'll be like, vibe check passed.
yeah.
That would rock so hard. I would be
what would be the thing after activate where you're just like,
so like they show me a card and it would say like team up on it, and like what it actually would be like it's like Cyclops and Jean Grey fused together or whatever, like the BFM. It's like a card that is two cards and they fuse together. And actually they should have done this for Rocket and Groot.
That would make sense, but
they should fuse cards. They should let cards fuse. They should be like a card that
merge.
puts, but like a card that puts two cards in your deck, and then each of them does a thing. But if you have both of them next to each other, they do a third thing.
I feel like I would draw one and not the other and then be kind of sad, but maybe there's a way around that.
Well, what if they're both like pretty good? Like,
sure.
What if it's like, what if it's like literally Rocket and Groot? It puts Rocket and Groot in your deck, but when you have both of them, it like doubles the effect.
Sure. I mean, yeah,
I feel like I cooked. I like.
There's a lot of knobs there, I guess.
Yeah, like I
find
think,
a way to make it work.
I think bluntly, like based on Glenn's answers in Discord, the thing that I'd be wondering, like they would show me something and I'd be like, what the fuck is this? Factions, probably? Glenn seems to like them.
Yeah, and they keep doing those events.
Yeah. But like
like what's an X-Man? What's an Avenger?
No, like I would see a tag where it's like your mutant characters get +1, and it would be like, what the fuck's that?
Yeah. That is let's just do it from like the early 2000s when I was reading comics, because then I would be able to clearly identify which characters were on which teams.
Okay, so huge problem is that other people were reading comics at different times.
Yeah, but I'm the main character.
Right, okay. I'm glad we figured that out. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've read...
If it wasn't obvious already. I mean,
the comics I've read...
I know it's your podcast and I'm simply the with.
Sure, yes. I read... like, I had like a Spider-Man omnibus when I was a kid. So... And I only realized this in retrospect. It included the story in which Gwen Stacy became a Republican. After her dad dies, she starts working with a man named Sam Bullitt, who is like his whole thing is like he's a shitty Republican politician who yells about law and order. It's not very subtle, but like he's like, we got to take down that menace, Spider-Man. It's very J. Jonah Jameson type thing. Turns out he's evil, shockingly, I know.
Weird.
But he ends up working with Gwen. She's like a spokesperson for his campaign, or more like a cause celeb type thing, where it's like, because of who she is in the universe, her dad was killed, police captain, we got to make the streets safe for our cops, things like that, right? And so Gwen is like a Republican in the storyline. And now, like, that's the only comic I remember reading when I was a kid. It's the one where like Gwen Stacy was a Republican.
I feel like her being a Republican as the kid of a cop is like not that far-fetched, though.
No, it's very straightforward, I think, yes. Like the conventionally attractive, popular kid of a cop is a Republican. I, for one, am totally blown away by this. But
yeah.
It just, like, I remember that storyline. I remember Sam Bullitt shaking his fist and yelling "Law and Order." Later on, they went to like the Savage Lands. They met Khazar, They those are the stories I remember from that Spider-Man omnibus. If anyone can tell me which one it is, that'd be amazing, because I don't have access to it in any way anymore. I don't have access to my childhood home anymore. So who the hell knows what happened to that? And then I also read what I believe was like Grant Morrison's New X-Men in the early 2000s, another omnibus where it was like basically the plot there was Quentin Quire was doing a drug that made his mutant powers stronger, and then there were 5 Emma Frost clones who were not Emma Frost clones, and he had a crush on one of them, and they all thought he was gross. Anyone who knows which one that is, I read that one too. So those are the 2 comics that I read before Marvel Snap, basically. Everything else after Marvel Snap.
All right, so this was 2001, and I believe this is after me. So maybe my stuff was the late 90s.
Ooh. Because like I have a very distinct memory of Quentin Quire with like my haircut but pink, and he's like rocking a leather jacket, and he's like, I'm the bad guy now, or whatever. There's also
It's like the was it Spider-Man 2 or whatever, where there's like the really cringy, like he goes emo scene and just like pulls his hair down or
yes,
whatever.
that was 3. He was the Venom
It
suit.
was 3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the emo Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Reminds me of that.
yeah. But yeah, those are the 2 comics that I read before I was a Marvel Snap content creator. Since then, I mean, I've read some really good comics, genuinely. I've become a fan of Al Ewing. I have tastes in comics, which is something I never did. But those were the 2 comics that I read. It was the Spider-Man omnibus with Sam Bullitt and Gwen Stacy as a Republican, and then the X-Men omnibus with Quentin Quire, Sophie something, Esme something, and there was like a class of people who had mutant powers that like weren't useful. They were called like the special class, and they were taught by Zorn, who was a guy who had a star for a head and his face was metal, and all of their powers were like just awful. Like that was like canonically, it was just like this guy is just a bird. Like he doesn't actually have any powers; he just has a beak. That's his name is Beak.
I from reading like random Wikipedias, I stumbled on this dude.
So, yeah, like I remember these are the characters I remember. Which, yeah, I don't know. Probably not the best place to start if you're gonna do it. I can't say I recommend it.
Oh, dude, it might have been like mid 90s.
Yeah. So, what is yours? Do you have any like? Do you have any like? I remember this moment greatly.
Well, so the one that I was looking for, which I think was pretty early, was the issue of X-Men, not Uncanny X-Men, but X-Men, where Magneto rips out Wolverine's adamantium.
I feel like that has to have happened more than once.
Well, this is the first time it happened.
I feel like once you figure out you can do that, you're just like, oh, I get it. That's the meta now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, this is where, so like they didn't do a lot of like alt covers back then, but I believe this one they did kind of like this foil like holographic things, and like all the adamantium is like just popping out, and it was great. Apparently it's X-Men 25 in 1993.
See, you have much cooler moments than I do, because I have just like these random,
Dude,
like,
that's what I'm saying.
things.
It's a good era.
Yeah. I remember like all the weird stuff and none of the cool stuff. Oh, cool thing that I remembered. The Wolverine project. He was Weapon 10, Weapon X, right? So there was a bit where it was like Weapon 12, 11, 12, and 13. And Weapon 13 was a guy who looks like Moon Knight in Shiesty named Phantom X, who had a mutant power of, and I'm not making this up, symbiosis with like an organic spaceship. That was his thing. Like somehow in 3 generations they got from Wolverine, Claw Arm Man, to that. really advanced science stuff going on there.
Was Phantom X in the Exiles at some point? Because I remember reading about him in a wiki at some
I
point
have
too.
literally no idea, dude. Like, I remember because he had aura. Phantom X aura out the ass. He had like a sick ass white costume and trench coat and stuff. And then his mutant power is just like lame. I don't really know a way to describe it. I don't even know if I'm remembering correctly. But he's introduced fighting Weapon 12, who is someone who has lost all sense of identity and is like a virus that grows and possesses people. Which is like, that's a cool ass power. And that guy dies in an episode, basically. And then we're following Phantom X. I don't know. The more I think about this omnibus, the more I'm like, I don't really understand how these stories connect, which has always kind of been my problem with comics, is that like there's things that loop over into each other. And if you don't have the full context for all of those things, it's impossible to do. It's possible to understand.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty weird, but that is just kind of the problem where it's like you have like a run that will consist of like a writer or like a writer artist duo or whatever, and it's like they have an idea of like where they want to take the story. Like they have like this arc that they want to tell, and then it's like as soon as they leave, someone new takes over, and it's super weird because then it's like, oh well, we'll just like retcon these things. It's like not convenient for us or whatever.
Yeah. Do you have any, you said you were reading the comments earlier. Did you pick any out?
A lot of stuff about Luke Cage. A lot of Luke Cage theories for how you could split them potentially.
Yeah. I think the one that I'm becoming the most high on is they make Luke Cage, like this Luke Cage, like way more expensive, and then they make like a Luke Cage that stops -1 afflict.
Yeah. How how effective is that? Slash like, yeah, it's good against like hazmat stuff, right?
Yeah.
Specifically, but like for the vast majority of stuff, including like the combo anti venom,
Yes,
for
but I don't
example,
want it to
like
combo with anti-venom. Like
yeah.
explicitly, I want a Luke Cage that doesn't do that.
Oh no, we have to play Shadow King again.
Yeah!
No,
Get back
no.
to playing the freaking game and stop putting Luke Cage in everything. But yeah, I I think we might just end it there then. If I don't really know what the hell I'm gonna do to put this episode on YouTube. This is like a Marvel Snap podcast, but this we don't talk about Marvel Snap. We talk about
All
Donald
right,
Trump.
I got one. I got one. Without any warning, give your co-host a random Marvel character and ask them to design a card in 60 seconds.
Okay.
I'm gonna do this to you.
You're
You don't
gonna
get to do it to me
okay. Fuck you.
because this is my favorite.
Okay.
All right. So in my era, book came out called Generation X. Are you familiar with this?
Not even close.
Okay, so it was like a new X-Men school, I think run by White Queen. I
Sure.
think Jubilee was involved somehow.
Sure.
But it was these characters, Penance, Chamber, there was like this Samoan dude, I forget his name. I don't remember all the characters.
Tell me who they are and tell me what the powers are, and I'll do what I can.
So Chamber was this guy who like had psionic fire abilities that when they manifested blew off his face.
Okay, is there anything else?
That's it. So he has like bandages covering his face, and if he takes them off, it just looks like he's on fire.
Like, does he use it to attack people? Does it like spit out from him, or is he just like a guy who is on fire?
I don't recall. I just remember it is like psionic energy, something along those lines.
So sort of similar to like Banshee's Scream, but fire flavored. Okay, so I'm just gonna assume my understanding of the character is correct here. And what we're gonna do is try to make this guy not necessarily like a battlefield presence, like a big hulking guy, but a battlefield presence in like a more oblique and debilitating way. So I think I might start at trying to make this guy apply a debuff of some sort, or similar to Red Guardian, like take an ability away. maybe something close to Spider-Woman, where it's like, I'm going to apply the debuff across the board. But if it's so uncontrollable, I think maybe you could do a card like this where it's like, on reveal, on reveal at a random location, afflict all of the units there with -1.
That's actually pretty good. Limited control of his power, could cast energy blast from his chest. So yeah, destroyed much of his chest and lower face when his powers emerge.
Okay, so that seems a little more destructive than what I was envisioning. So -1 probably
Yeah, but
isn't that. It's maybe
sure, but like it hitting everyone, I think, is pretty flavorful.
Yeah, like I do want it to hit everyone, but like I would think that like I would probably want it to be a little bit, you know, a little bit less -1-y and a little bit more like I think silence would be a little bit too psychic-y. Maybe it would be like blow up one of yours and one of your opponent's units at a random location.
He might not go around killing his homies if he can help it, but
I mean, limited control over his powers, I don't know.
it's a wild card.
Yeah. Do you want me to give you one? Or are you going to let me give you one?
I mean, you can. I'm really bad at this.
I'm going to give you one then. I'm going to give you a really easy one. The Incredible Hulk.
The Hulk already has a card.
Right. Like, what I'm saying is,
so
ignore the context of the current Hulk. Design the Hulk as a Series 5 card.
Is there anything different about the Incredible Hulk?
No, it's the
like
Hulk. I'm just
Hulk.
I'm telling you to just do the Hulk. But like a Hulk that isn't meant to be a basic card, a Hulk that is meant to be a real card.
Yeah, so this is like I think Hulk's appeal is like pretty basic, like Hulk smash, right? Like Hulk just hits things, breaks things. There's some other aspects of him where it's like, oh, he's invulnerable or whatever, but like to make a Hulk card exciting, I would not want to play into the like underappreciated aspects of him, right? So you're saying like 5 cost? Or just no, you said Series 5.
Yeah, I want like current Hulk is not actually a game piece in the same way that a real card would be. He is a part of the tutorial. What would a card designed around being a game piece that expresses what the Hulk is look like?
Does the 6-drop Hulk still exist? Because I don't want to make another 6-drop if it does.
Let's say no. Let's say let's say that card is I don't know, Abomination instead, and Abomination is Amadeus Cho.
Which is Smart Hulk?
He's a different Hulk, but sure.
Different Hulk.
Yeah.
Okay. 6, 9.
Okay, nice.
LOL. I want to go like 6, 8, but like that doesn't feel very hulky. So like let's go 6, 9 on reveal. Kill something smaller than me.
Ooh.
On the opposing side.
Yeah, no, that works. Yeah, that gets it. He smashes. Yeah.
But it's like, oh, it's like not that big, but like it does feel hulky, you know? And I think you could probably make a better like 5 cost version of this, I guess.
Then it's just Cannonball, like probably.
Yeah, basically.
I think there's I think that plays.
Like, so Cannonball was initially just like it hit a random thing, right? Now it hits the highest.
Yes.
And so this would just be like always hits a random thing, but kills it. Doesn't like move it to another location. So like, yeah, it would be similar, but
yeah, I like that. I think that works. Yeah, I mean, good question. Do you know the name of the person who asked that question? Because I did say I would get better about that.
Snowpoint 720.
Good job, Snowpoint. With all of that said, we're probably going to have to end it there. For those of you who come to this podcast for Marvel Snap discussion, don't blame me. Blame the President of the United States. Both of them.